Hello and good evening. After much thought, Mark and I would like to announce that we will not be moderating the next presidential debate. After seeing Chris Wallace age 10 years before our eyes, we figured being talked over for an hour and a half is not worth the effort. Coming to you live from the Commonwealth, welcome back to Nude News. Welcome back to Nude News. As always, I'm Andrew Furman. This episode, we break down this week's presidential debate with our chief correspondent, Mark Ramson. Mark, don't try to talk over me, because unlike Chris Wallace, I have a mute button. How you doing tonight, buddy?
I'll keep that in mind. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to hear you're doing good. So, Mark, I want to dive into most of the main topics of discussion from the debate. But first, I wanted to ask you, who are the biggest winners and losers from the debate this week?
No one, absolutely no one won this debate. This was the worst presidential debate in American history. Both candidates were constantly talking over one another, making it virtually impossible to hear what either one of them was saying. No policy substance was discussed, and as you alluded to, Andrew, due to Chris Wallace's inability to keep control over the debate, the Commission on Presidential Debates is altering the format next time in hopes of making it more of a coherent, watchable experience.
Wow. In the debate, Mark, Supreme Court appointee Amy Coney Barrett's name was brought up. Could you give us some background into her previous rulings and how she could affect the Supreme Court?
Well, Andrew, when looking at her record, it's no surprise Amy Coney Barrett is the center of controversy in this election. Amy Coney Barrett is an originalist, meaning she interprets the Constitution the way that the founders originally intended for it to mean, putting a stop to all progress in the eyes of Democrats. There are also concerns of her inability to keep a separation of church and state in her rulings. She identifies as a Christian and even went as far to say she would be unable to sit on hearings about the death penalty due to her faith. There are also records showing she may be a member of the group People of Praise, a group that advocates for male dominance, making her pick to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg just that much more controversial.
All right, from ACB, we move to election integrity. Mark, what was said by both candidates on this topic?
This was, again, one of the more standout moments of the debate. As the final section, we saw just how divided this country is surrounding this election. One asked if he would accept the results. Trump said, quote, "This is going to be fraud like you've never seen," end quote. The president's view is that mail-in voting is unaccountable and subject to tampering. Biden came out and said that he would indeed accept the results regardless of the outcome. This exchange just added to the absolute chaos that was this debate.
Both Biden and Trump were asked about climate change. How did their responses differ?
Well, at face value, the main difference is that Trump was not able to come out and say he believed in climate change. Biden was able to, and he was asked questions about his plan to address climate change. He interestingly did not include signing on to the Green New Deal, which separates him from many former Bernie Sanders primary supporters.
Of course, a huge topic on every voter's mind is the handling of the coronavirus pandemic. Did anything stick out to you about their response to this issue, Mark?
As you said, Andrew, this issue is extremely important to many voters, and because of that, this section took up a large portion of the debate. Biden blamed Trump for many of the deaths that happened during the pandemic and encouraged the wearing of masks. Trump responded saying that if Biden were president, no less people would have died. Because of the way this debate had been going, little to no actual policies or plans were discussed as to how either candidate would have addressed the pandemic going forward.
Finally, I wanted to end on the discussion of racial justice. Much has been said about both candidates on the issue. Highlight for us why this was the most explosive segment of the night, Mark.
Well, this is where we see the most talked about moment. This is a segment where Trump, when questioned on whether he would tell white supremacist group Proud Boys to stand down and stop engaging in violence, he said, "Proud Boys, stand back and stand by," which is certainly not the same thing as stand down. Many see this moment as a President Trump encouraging violence among his most violent supporters.
All right, that's all for today's episode. Remember, size only matters when it comes to poll numbers and maybe crowd sizes. From everyone here at ECTV 40 and Nude News, I'm Andrew Furman saying so long and good night.